Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another top 10, and this is my top 10 Brazilian players. Coming in at number 10, Marcelo. Kind of the natural successor to Roberto Carlos. Obviously, they had Felipe Luis at left back for a little while in Brazil, but Marcelo was by far the better one for me. I feel like he was the best replacement for Roberto Carlos. I still don't think he measured up to that, but that's not a shot at him. Do you know what I mean? Roberto Carlos is one of the best players ever. Do you know what I mean? So, but I think he did a very good job. Obviously with Real Madrid for a lot of years, won a lot of titles, and a lot of the time he was their best player for like week in week out. He was one of their most consistent. He'd chip in with goals for a defensive player. He got forward a lot. And as I said, he was a vital player for Madrid especially. So he has to be on this list. The majority of the time I saw him was for Real Madrid, but he has to make this list just for being a Brazilian, a quality player and one that I liked watching a lot. So Marcelo, number 10. Number 9, Dani Alves. First saw him at Sevilla years and years ago. Just thought, who is this guy? Just watching a La Liga game when I was younger. And he caught my eye. And obviously he caught the eye of Barcelona because they signed him up. And it was just good stuff from there pretty much. Won a ton of titles at Barcelona. Just a fantastic player. Someone that I enjoyed watching a lot. Especially for a defensive player. Another one that got forward a lot. Chipped in with his goals. He was good with free kicks and set pieces. Very rapid and quick. Fantastic technique. Fantastic skill on the ball. The only criticism I would have of him is he was a little bit in the ref's face a lot with like fouls and waving for the imaginary card and went over a bit too easily for me, but that's just a normal thing nowadays with football. But when he was coming through, it was a little bit still building on that sort of sense. So that was the only criticism I had of him really, but now, as I said, I don't agree with it, but in modern football, that's normal now. So, but one that I thoroughly miss watching. He was a fantastic footballer. Coming in at number 8, Lucio. Centre-back, towering figure, strong presence, a leader on the pitch. I remember him from his days at Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League. Obviously played in the final against Real Madrid when Zidane scored that magnificent volley with his weaker foot. And obviously he come out on the losing side in that game, but one of the best defensive players I've ever seen for Brazil. As I said, he was like an English John Terry in my opinion, but probably with a bit more technique and a bit more ability maybe. And someone that I think that they could do with nowadays. Just more of an old-fashioned type of defender in my opinion, but obviously had that bit of skill that Brazilians have as well. So Lucio here makes this list at number 8. Coming in at number 7, a powerhouse, Adriano. I loved watching this guy play when he was around. His career was ridiculed with injuries and off-the-field problems that definitely shortened his career. But when he was playing and the peak of his career at Inter Milan, where he won titles, as I said, a sheer powerhouse. Had great technical ability for a big guy as well. Strong on the ball, quick feet, very quick feet for a guy his size, powerful in the air, and who remembers his shot power on Pez from back in the day of a 99 shot power? One off of 100, like near perfection on shot power. A ridiculous stat that was in the game at the time, but a very fun stat for the Pez users, and I was one of them. But Adriano, a great player, and it's just a shame that he didn't have a longer career. As I said, his off-field antics and injury problems definitely shortened his career, so that is the only minor in a great story. Adriano, number 7. Number 6, a legend, and this guy could easily be number 1, Cafu. The only Brazilian to play in 3 Brazilian finals in a World Cup. And also, he is the most capped international player for Brazil ever, which is some feat. And just a great captain, a leader on the pitch. I think he's played in 3 or 4 World Cups. As I said, the most capped Brazilian player ever. And you're going to want him in your team if you're going to battle. A great right back or wing back. Could play in various positions, even though he played there most of his career. You could definitely play him in other positions and know that you're going to get the best out of him, and he's going to do more than a shift because he had the technical ability, the fitness. He was hardly ever injured from what I remember as well. So a great leader on the pitch and a vital part in some of them World Cup winning teams for Brazil. So Cafu has to make this list, and he makes it in at number 6. Number 5, we've got Rivaldo, a guy that I remember from early in my childhood with Barcelona. When Kluivert was there, it was them two. And I didn't really know a lot of their team, but I remember watching United against them in Champions League in the 90s. And he was the one that always stood out for them. A threat from set pieces, his free kicks, acrobatical attempts like bicycle kicks. He was strong for someone of a slight build like himself, but a kind of tall but slight figure, but still deceivingly strong, I thought. Went down a bit easily for my liking, but technique on the ball, fantastic. The only thing that I didn't like that sticks in my memory is at the 2002 World Cup at the corner flag where a Turkey player kicked him the ball for a Brazil corner, and I think it hit him in his leg or his knee, and he's thrown himself to the ground holding his face like it hit him in his face, and then the replay proves otherwise. And diving and stuff wasn't as bad in them days, but even at that point, it was shocking to see that on the replay. So once that happened with him, I went off him a lot, but you can't take away from the ability he had as a player and how he could affect games. So kind of, I think he went to Olympiacos near the end of his career, and it kind of just it fizzled out a bit, but a great career before that, I thought. And as I said, I remember him for Barcelona being their main threat and their main guy. When they had Kluivert at the time as well. So Rivaldo has to make this list at number 5. Kaka, number 4. I still remember to this day the performance for AC Milan against Manchester United at Old Trafford, where he completely destroyed us, knocked us out of the Champions League. Just a phenomenal individual performance. A great team player throughout his career. A lovely player to watch. Great technique. Wasn't the fastest, but he had quick feet still. Like he was one of them players that was a lot quicker with the ball than without, which is quite a rare thing. But he seemed to get that extra bit of pace when he did have the ball, and he still wasn't that fast. But players still couldn't seem to stop him. As I said, a very clever player. He was almost like a Bergkamp in midfield, like a crazy skillful player. And one that I wish we could have seen in the Premiership, because I think that he would have suited it. It might have took him a while to adjust to the speed, but I think once he got the speed down, he would have been nailed on, a great player, even in the Premiership. I think he was that good. And I think he was quite close to coming to the Premier League at one point, but it just didn't happen, which is unfortunate. But won a Champions League, won a World Cup. He's won a lot of stuff, and yeah, one that I thoroughly miss watching, just as an individual, and offered that little bit of flair and that individuality, but he was also a great team player as well. So, Kaka, number 4. Number 3, Roberto Carlos. Very famous for his free kick technique that he used to do, with the outside of the boot with a long run up. Some of his free kicks are actually measured at 105 miles per hour. That's just crazy. Considered the most attacking left back ever in the history of the game. He won 4 La Liga titles, 3 Champions Leagues. He was in dream teams and all sorts, and one that I thoroughly miss watching again. Just energy wise, technique, power. Just an unbelievable player, and one that I think was very underrated. I think a lot of people rated him, but when people mention dream teams and that, and their all-time dream teams with things, he doesn't always get put in there. And for me, I think he should be in there. So he has to make this list. But his technique on his free kicks almost defied science. So he has to make this list. Roberto Carlos, number 3. Number 2, Ronaldinho. Now, in terms of just a pure skillful player, flair, tricks, he's the GOAT for me, the greatest of all time when it comes to that. Number 1, you will see as in a minute, I think was probably the better footballer, but in terms of skill and, like I said, adding character to the game, enjoying the game and tricks, Ronaldinho. He's the player I miss most watching out of any player in history, even over Manchester United players and English players. He is the one that used to play with a smile on his face all the time. And the stuff he used to do on the pitch was like something out of a video game. And he was so unpredictable, but it was so joyful to watch him. Like, he's one of them players, he was like the Michael Jordan of football. And as I said, as soon as he retired, I missed him straight away, and I still miss him to this day. Like, he makes the kids want to go out and try and copy his style, do you know what I mean? And some of the stuff none of us will ever get close to, let alone doing it at that level of football that he did it at, and at the speed he did it at. So, broke England's hearts in the World Cup in 2002 with that free kick as well. I remember that goal against Chelsea in the Champions League where the ball didn't even move. He just wiggled his ankle from left to right and then took it into the far corner with the outside of his boot, and the keeper was, I think it was Czech in goal, just left stranded. Against quality sides all the time, and just continued to deliver on and off. And continue to deliver on the pitch. And for me, the most exciting player ever in the game when it comes to just, as I said, tricks and bringing joy to the game. So Ronaldinho, number 2. And at number 1, I think we all know it's going to be Ronaldo, R9, the greatest striker I've ever seen in my life. As a kid, he was someone that you always wanted to be in, like the arcade football games and the PlayStation games and everything. He was a recognisable figure with his haircut and his appearance. Obviously, as a youngster, got to Barcelona and was under Bobby Robson, the late great Bobby Robson, and was unstoppable at Barcelona at such a young age. Was also done well at PSV the short time he was there, and then got bought by Inter Milan and then later Real Madrid. In terms of speed on the ball, unstoppable. One of them players that just had an extra gear when he got the ball and accelerated. Quick feet, he had the tricks, he had the flair, he had the skill, but he also had the just all-round ability of a great footballer. Positional sense, that sort of fox in the box mentality as well, could score goals outside of the box as well. But just someone that you need in your team. And for a lot of people, he is the best player ever, not just Brazilian, but in the world, in the history of football. It's too many mentions. There's too many honours and achievements to mention in this video for him. I'd have to do a separate video on that, but he's won countless titles, La Liga titles, World Cups, obviously. A lot of us will remember that 1998 World Cup when Brazil-France in the final, and he wasn't on the team sheet to come out, and then they changed it last minute. And he did play, but then it later came out that he suffered from a seizure and just wasn't himself in the final. And obviously, France went on to win the final. I think if Ronaldo was fit, because he had a great tournament leading up to the final, if he was fit, they probably would have won that final, in my opinion. Even though a lot of people felt like France would have won it anyway, I feel like they would have had obviously had a lot better chance if Ronaldo was fit. But one that I miss watching a lot. Even when he, later on in his career after his injuries he suffered and he was a bit more overweight and not probably at full fitness, he was still quality on the pitch in glimpses and still offered something. So, look, injuries definitely altered his career and shortened it. Had some very bad injuries. If it weren't for the injuries, he would have gone on to get even more titles and accomplishments. So, the greatest Brazilian footballer I've ever seen. It's a tough one for me with him and Ronaldinho, but an all-round footballer and just someone I grew up kind of idolising and thinking he's almost godlike. It has to be R9, the original Ronaldo. So this is my top 10 Brazilian players of all time, guys. We'll be back soon with another top 10. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll catch you on the next one.